Hello and welcome to Metropolitan Elites. We live in our ivory tower. We live there,
etc., etc.,
etc., etc. Yeah, the lizards and the left-wing Illuminati.
Phone call.
Yeah.
There's a guy. Yeah, he's doing quite well at the moment.
Yes.
He's a bit of a left-wing politician.
Yeah, left-wing politician.
He's focusing mainly on problems of working class, exploiting jobs to other countries and stuff like that. And he's refusing to engage in personal abuse.
Yeah, he's not playing the political games.
Yeah.
He's just saying his beliefs. This is what we should do.
And his sort of ratings are going through the polls.
Yeah, that's familiar.
Yeah. His name's
Bernie
Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. It's interesting. He uses the phrase "democratic socialist." Now, you think, not being from America, you think that phrase is out. You can't use the word socialist. You can say democratic, I suppose, but some of them weren't like that. No, we're a republic. Of course, socialism is actually communism, really. One. Of course, because he's factual, he doesn't try to water things down and things like that. He specifically said he likes the Nordic model of social democracy, which is something obviously the right don't tend to talk about because it's successful. There it is, being success, and the arguments against that's different over there. I'm yet to see a reasonable argument against.
Oh, they're very small. There's only 9 million people in Sweden. Obviously, you can't apply that to our situation.
It's different. You know, and obviously he wants reform of Wall Street and get rid of sort of corruption and tax breaks for the rich and tax evasion, stroke avoidance, and all that stuff. Opponent of the death penalty, so he's normal, and he's anti-immigration. Interesting.
I actually think the immigration thing is going to become an issue for the left now, because up until now it has largely been right-wing nut jobs who've talked about immigration.
Yeah, which is why no one took it seriously.
Yeah. A very sort of insulated vision. There is a reasonable argument to be anti-immigration, and it depends on your...
Depends how much, doesn't it? I mean, if you mean just close all the doors now...
Well, you've got to make a decision. You know, we are incredibly lucky, and the Americans are incredibly lucky to be born in the country that they're born in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Now, are we born with a right to have all the advantages that country supplies or offers you? And do we have a right to say, just because you're born somewhere else, you don't have those advantages?
Yeah.
And it's actually, when you boil down to it, it's quite a difficult, for some people, it's quite a difficult argument, because it's hard to come up with a rational
argument against that.
Argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, for it. Most people would say, actually, yeah, I have a right to this. I was born here. This is mine. We shouldn't be letting immigrants in to take advantage of it and effectively dilute my rights and advantages.
I can see the. I don't think that's a completely unreasonable position. It's an unethical position, I think. But it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of practicality of I want to keep all the stuff. We want all the stuff.
There is you can look at it from another way, in the sense that, okay, you secure what you have here, and then you look internationally to see how you can raise standards internationally without diluting what you've got here.
Yeah.
Because what does tend to be this is the argument he's making.
Yeah.
Is it's a race to the bottom. So he's arguing against the trade pact with South Asia. Is it China?
I don't know. Is it? I thought it was China.
Not China.
Oh, okay.
There's another one coming up. He said every time we get involved with these trade deals with China or whoever, all we do is we export jobs to these countries, and then they sell their goods back to us, and
cheap, yeah.
Yeah, it makes them wealthier, and it dilutes, it drives down wages in our country. So what we're actually doing is we're going down. We're not bringing people up.
But all I want is a discussion about immigration. The silence is deafening. No one's talking about it.
Yeah.
Except for everyone.
But Bernie Sanders is taking the latter position that, America has been exporting jobs for too long. The wealth is going to the top, because basically all that's happening is the wealthy are getting their products made in China or India or wherever.
Trickle down hasn't worked. The standard of living is better over the last 100 years. Is that really trickle-down economics? No, trickle-down economics works in a smaller time scale than that. You're looking 10 years, and of course it doesn't. That's to do with movement of technology and things like that. Yeah.
I mean, one statistic he likes to quote is that since the neocon or the neoliberal economic policies were really pushed into full force by Ronald Reagan, 80% of the new wealth created has gone to the top one tenth of 1%. About 80%.
Yeah.
Now, if that's true, and I presume it's true.
If it's not, let us know.
Yeah. If it's
Don't just
not,
say, no, it isn't, you're lying.
Yeah.
Citation?
That's quite a horrific statistic. One that shouldn't be defended. We should be looking at that and think there's something wrong with this. We've got to change it.
The problem is, an argument for that's saying, right, we want to keep our stuff, so the rich get all the stuff, isn't that the same argument as we want all our stuff in our country, we don't want you to have it? Isn't it the same argument? It
is a little bit.
I offer no solutions.
It is a little bit. But I think there's a wider thing going on here. I mean, the correlations with Jeremy Corbyn, as we tried to make out, are quite astounding.
Yeah.
Very similar characters, and they seem to have sort of got a little groundswell of action. He's also talking about creating a mass movement and going out into the individual states to campaign to try and combat these massive super PACs that people like Hillary Clinton can get, which is basically rich people buying the election, and he's quite willing to say that.
Well, in America it's never happened. The richest person always wins in America, 100% of the time. That's never been different.
Yeah.
That's not obviously why there's a causation correlation, but really, I mean, come on.
Which is quite sad, really. I mean, America is supposed to be the shining light on the hill, democracy in action, what you can achieve with democracy
if you've got lots of money.
And yet there are people buying the election. But this is sort of what I've sort of got from it this week, looking at the fact that he goes out there and calls himself a democratic socialist, and it's having no effect whatsoever. I mean, I'm sure they were interviewing him on Fox News, and it flashed across the bottom, openly says that he's a socialist.
Yeah.
As like a bullet point.
Admits he's a murderer.
Yeah. But it's not doing anything. It's having no effect.
Strange.
And I think what's happened is the usual tropes of the right, the things that they use to justify doing what are actually quite unreasonable things. Just think about it for a second. You're saying to people, we're going to make you better off by giving all the money to people that already have lots of money.
And although that hadn't happened for the last 40 years, it will this time.
That's an incredibly hard sell, and yet the right have managed to spin it in a way that seems to make sense to people. It is a real elegant example of Orwellian doublespeak, or whatever you want to call it. But they are very good at framing the argument in a way that looks bad on their opponents, makes their opponents look bad, and makes them look good.
Yeah, we should say that the Republicans and Democrats are guilty of this.
Yeah,
they're both in bed with business, etc., etc.
Yeah. I think we've come to a point where we're at saturation point now. People have heard it so much for so long and so often that they're just not being taken in by it. It just goes into the background.
Yeah, and it's like the accepted standards of argument, the accepted standards of fake politicians. The cynicism about that has become mainstream for the first time. Although everyone says that stuff, people who are involved in politics say that stuff. It's for whatever reason. Maybe it is internet related. It's been a war of attrition against it, and the internet has become a more mainstream thing. We were using it in the early 90s, but that doesn't mean everybody was. So now everyone looks at Yvette Cooper and obviously can see how incredibly fake everything she's saying is, and how calculated and everyone sees through it.
I found it unbelievable that I do find it incredibly strange. They tried to smear Jeremy Corbyn. They played the same card that they played in the Scottish referendum. Fear. Just fear everything if Jeremy Corbyn becomes elected. Do not even listen to what he has to say. Just listening to him can pollute your mind.
Yeah. To him making up a whole post-apocalyptic story about because of Jeremy Corbyn.
And, I mean, this is his party colleagues saying this, really sticking the knife in. And yet they were not getting any traction. And it became glaringly obvious. It's because he was talking about issues in a normal way that makes sense. And they just refused to engage with the issues. They just kept...
They couldn't do it.
We'll just keep sticking the knife in, and eventually we'll get what we want. He'll go away, and one of the Three Stooges will be in power. And
Yeah, I don't think it was stubbornness. I think if they're part of that system, it's very hard to come out of it. And I'm sure they're not that self-aware of. They just think, this crazy guy, what's he doing?
Well, you would have thought one of them would have thought, I'll give it a go. I'll just say what I think and see what happens. You know, I can't.
Well,
Liz Kendall, for example.
Maybe Andy Burnham does. He's just a bit bland. He's not like Liz Kendall and Yvette Cooper.
I think Andy Burnham came across as he is. He's a cabinet minister at best.
Yes. Yeah. But he's just lightweight, isn't he?
Yeah. So so it's. Imagine the situation, everyone's saying there's no chance Jeremy Corbyn could be elected. Imagine if Bernie Sanders was president. How ridiculous would it seem then for Jeremy Corbyn to win an election?
Yeah, and plus, all of that media would just look like complete fools. They'd have to stop that from happening because they would have lost the argument forever.
Yeah.
You know,
well, they're seeming pretty. Their reputation is pretty dicey at the moment as it is. I mean, with the result of the general election, the odds of Jeremy Corbyn at 200 to 1, whatever. Turns out it looks like he's going to win. I mean, we're going to find out tomorrow. Sadiq Khan won in London today for the mayoral candidacy. He was looking a bit of a. I think it was Tesha Jal was going to cakewalk it apparently.
Yeah. Well,
it seems that the Sadiq Khan winning seems that has kind of strengthened the idea that Jeremy Corbyn's going to win, and everyone's saying you're crazy to think Jeremy Corbyn. The media and the political commentators have got it really wrong.
Spectacularly wrong. Yeah. And then, of course, so they thought, oh no, we'll just keep. It's the end of the world.
Yeah.
He's ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's mirrored on the other side of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying Donald Trump would be a flash in the pan, and now he's the candidate to beat.
And he's like a comedy character, isn't he? It's just bizarre. Oh, we talked about that last week.
We did that. And Bernie Sanders has got no chance, and it's going to be Hillary all the way.
Mm-hmm. Thing about Hillary, I thought we'd talk about Hillary today. I thought it'd be a bit of Bernie Sanders, but Hillary. And I didn't do a lot of research, and I'm not American, so bear with me, But I thought I'd find all this stuff about the dodgy stuff she's done and da-na-na.
The email thing, the Fox are making a big thing about the emails.
Well, it's not that big. She did it before it was against the law, and all the people criticising her, they did it as well.
Yeah.
Jeb Bush did it as well, so it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. It is.
Maybe they know what's in the emails, and there's something dodgy in the emails they know about, and they can't say so, possibly. But yeah, I mean, Hillary Clinton, she talks about individual rights and freedoms. That's what I believe in. The Huffington Post said she's electable, she's democratic, but she leans to the right, which is true, and that's a normal Democratic candidate, actually.
I actually thought Joe Biden was looking like to be the deciding factor here.
Well, he hasn't decided, has he?
No.
Yeah.
And it's very... Because I think he's ranked... I can't remember, he's ranking about 15% or something like that. Or polling about 15%. Now, if he doesn't run, the question is, where does that 15% go?
Yeah.
If it goes to Hillary, then it's game over, I think, for Bernie Sanders. But if it goes to Bernie Sanders, it's game over for Hillary. But my suspicion is, I mean, we're not big American commentators, I would guess that it would be for Hillary, which is giving the guy an awful lot of leverage at the moment. He's not going to win. I think he's sort of waiting to see how things go. If one of the campaigns starts going south a bit, I think he could be the breath of fresh air needed to liven the Democratic race up, and he could, actually, that's what he's hoping for, and then he can announce his candidacy as a late contender and come in at the last minute and mop up, because he's not one of the other two which everyone's sick of.
It's interesting how just like the Republican one, there's all these names. They sound like made up names. I mean, you've got Lincoln Chaffee, Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, Jeff Boss, Lawrence Lessig. I don't know. I mean, we're not American, and they're very different ways in many ways. And obviously, because we have the same language, we see the difference in cultures and everything. And maybe it is more of a reality TV. They need a character with a catchy name, a bomber, that we don't quite understand. I mean, someone who's been on reality TV, being the president to us, is so ridiculous. It's so, although technically that's what David Cameron is. He didn't actually go on I'm a Celebrity, but he almost did. But then you've got this guy who really is a reality TV character, who might be the president. But I suppose it echoes Ronald Reagan, I suppose. And then he was a rubbish actor.
And a puppet.
Oh well. Sorry.
Well, maybe we were putting a full stop on this sorry affair, which has lasted 30 years. Are we talking now? 80,
It's 40 billion.
35 to 40. Yeah, it will be 40 years. This little experiment in
Neoliberalism.
conning everyone.
We have all the money, and it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally, I'm not opting for anything extreme to the left. You've got to fund business. Business needs to be free from too much government intervention. I'm good with that. I've got libertarian things in my beliefs about individual freedoms more so than business freedoms. But this is something that just hasn't worked. Doesn't work. It's rubbish. Everyone's miserable. Why do we have to carry on with it?
I'll give you. I thought of an example today. I know someone who works for BT as a project manager. Now we privatised BT in the 80s, and it's largely seen as a successful privatisation, example of a successful privatisation.
Bit rubbish, but generally, yeah.
Yeah. His job was to make sure that their labour availability remained the same, but their labour costs went down. In other words, exporting services to India. So transporting stuff done here to India. So jobs, basically.
Outsourcing.
The only way privatised industries can become more efficient is if they do stuff like that, basically.
Yeah.
That is what the government has to deal with. Accountability, the fact that it's accountable to the public, and therefore that creates bureaucracy because they have to record what they're doing and why they're doing it, and the steps taken to make the decision, and the fact that there's a lot of pressure on them to hire British workers. Good thing, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's an argument for, offering work in third world countries, and it's sort of in our image gives us a bit of PR, but not on doesn't need to be on doing it on the scale. Obviously, is the problem.
Well, set off a government industry and basically export all the jobs to India, but keep the services here. It sounds like a recipe for disaster. We're not producing anything. We're just cycling services.
Great.
So that's where we're at. We're at the other end of that, and
obviously the Illuminati sent us a letter this week. Actually, it was a long letter. So obviously all of that we've just said, we know what we think. We're just puppets.
We're just echoing verbatim.
Yeah, being at the top of the pyramid as we are, controlling the world.
Looking at sneering.
When there's a problem, it's our fault because we control the world from London. Because we're Londoners. Can you tell?
Yeah.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks for something else. We don't know yet. See you then.